Decided to block my family and cancel my sister's free wedding photo shoot when I realized I was the scapegoat. I'm 31 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my relationship with my dad was fraught with tension and disappointment. He was never just tough, he was downright awful to me since childhood, so much so that there was a point I was actually taken away. He always had a clear favorite. My brother and sister from his first stepmother got all the love and attention while I was left to fend for scraps. But despite all of it, he never stopped drilling the importance of family into my head, acting as if blood means, you forgive and forget. I took that idea seriously. I genuinely love my dad, and I even went to therapy to try to fix things between us, but lately, being around him felt more like a punishment than a reunion. My therapist always suggested I bring up the past and try to talk to my dad about what happened. I tried, but every conversation hit a brick wall. He flat out refused to acknowledge anything, insisted I just move on, and claimed he didn't live in the past. Fast forward to the last 3 years. I was going through a rough patch financially and had to move in with my dad, my stepmom, and my brother. Lily, my sister, she's 20 now, was in the Marines, all the way in Japan, so I was put in her room. It was the only available space, since apparently the Bronco room was too precious for my dad to give up. But even with Lily so far away and very vocally never planning to move back, she was enraged at the mere thought of me being in her room. My parents let me stay there, but had me paying rent, and every closet and drawer in that room was jammed with my dad's clothes. Nobody offered to clear any space for me or let me decorate, nothing. Meanwhile, my brother, 23 at the time, had his own room and he was paying less rent than me. Then things got worse. My dad told me Lily was coming home for a visit and she'd be bringing her boyfriend and a friend. That meant I needed to find another place to stay. He might talk to my stepmom about knocking my rent down to half for the month, but the expectation was clear: I had to go. I was stunned. Where exactly was I supposed to go? Lily's mom has a big house 10 minutes away, with plenty of space, but my dad was desperate to be the favorite parent, so he wanted Lily to choose him. I asked if I could sleep in the Bronco room, absolutely not. I asked if I could sleep on the couch, also no. When I said I thought it was unfair, he called me selfish, accused me of always making things about myself, and that was that. But a couple days later, after what I can only assume was an argument with my siblings, he came back and told me, "Don't worry. You don't have to move out. You're my daughter too, and I'm not going to exclude you anymore." As if I should be grateful, ignoring the fact that he flat out admitted to excluding me all this time. When Lily finally arrived, I asked her, since she wasn't moving back anyway, if she'd mind if I redecorated. She said no. She wanted her room to stay exactly the same, even from across an ocean. Even if I asked Dad, she'd tell him no, and he'd always side with her. It was a cherry on top. I couldn't do it anymore. I snatched up a place that someone needed to sublet for 8 months, packed my things, and left in a rush. But life didn't get easier. I lost my job, had to leave the apartment, and tried launching my wedding photography business. For a stretch, I was living in my car while trying to piece everything back together. I didn't tell my family anything about it. Instead, every so often, I'd show up at their house for an hour or two, just to see everyone, then I'd head back to my car. My stepmom told me I was coming over too much even though I was barely ever there. That crushed me, but I tried to respect her wishes. One time, I went to the house to grab a package, and asked my stepmom if I could quickly test something I bought before heading out. She said it was fine, she was going to take a bath. I was there less than 20 minutes. Then she calls me after I'd left and acts hurt. "I thought we talked about this. I don't want you coming over so much." I explained I was barely there at all, but she insisted I'd been there for more than an hour and we ended up in an argument. That was when I decided to skip celebrating my 30th birthday with my family altogether. When my dad called to talk about my birthday, I told him what happened, and all he could say was, "That sucks." That was it. Eventually, I made up with my stepmom, but nothing ever felt truly okay between us. When my car finally broke down, I ended up living out of a storage unit for a little while. I finally broke down and told an older friend what was really going on in my life. This was around Easter. My dad let me stay over for the holiday for a night, but it was my friend and her husband who offered me a real place to stay. With their help, I got back on my feet, found a job, and moved into my own place again. My dad promised to visit me every other weekend, since I didn't have a car and he wanted to help. He came only once, complained I lived too far away, and he didn't want to pay the tolls. Family gatherings, birthdays, dinners, suddenly, I was always excluded. Just 45 minutes away, too far for him, but he would drive 4 hours to see my sister, now engaged. And then, Lily was finally ready to talk wedding plans. I was genuinely excited for her, so as a gift, I offered to do her wedding photography for free, even pay for a videographer with my own team. She asked me and her stepsister Paris to be maids of honor, and told us the three of us would go pick out bridesmaid dresses together. We'd figure out a date later. 2 days later, I get tossed into a Snapchat bridesmaids group chat, and I see Paris and Giselle making plans to pick out dresses on Tuesday without me. Confused, I sent Lily a private message, not wanting to make a scene in front of everyone. I said, I thought the three of us were going together, but I can't do Tuesday, I have work. She told me it wasn't official yet, just talking about it with Paris. Well, Tuesday came, and they went without me anyway, then posted about it in the group chat. There's always a pattern, I get left out. 2 weeks before my birthday rolls around. No one asks if I want to do anything, or what I want, which they always do for everyone else. We're an oddly practical family about gifts, nobody ever has to guess. You say what you want, everyone coordinates, and that way, nobody gets something they don't like. For the first time, I make an Amazon wish list and drop it in our family chat, just some home decor stuff, prices ranging $6 to $80. To be funny, I even stuck a wildly expensive camera lens on the list. No way did I actually expect anyone to buy it, but a girl can dream, right? Lily made a snarky comment, like father like daughter, and dig at how much dad loves extravagant gifts. She called my camera lens ridiculous and I shrugged, told her I wasn't really expecting it. Then she changed the name of our family group chat to Lily as the favorite daughter. I guess she thought she was being cute. A couple days later, my dad called, and as we talked I decided to open up about how Lily was making me feel, and that I tried so hard to build a stronger bond with my family, especially my sister. But then my dad told me she was engaged now and living her own life, as if that somehow excused everything. I got so mad I told him he was always making excuses for her. He pushed back, telling me that wasn't true, but once again started telling me I needed to get over it and move on. That was it for me. I just snapped. The conversation took a turn. Suddenly it wasn't about my sister anymore, but about my dad and me. I told him all I wanted was to talk things through so I could heal, so I could finally move forward, but he just cut me off and flat out said no. He told me again to move on, that he was happy with his life. I couldn't believe what he was saying. I said, it's not just about you. You were really awful to me. That's when he called me a pain in the ass child. I yelled at him, but I was a child. He went silent for a moment, and then tried to backtrack, saying, well, I meant teenager. But that didn't help. I reminded him that I was still just a kid, and honestly, all the pain in the ass meant was that I didn't clean up after myself sometimes, not that I ever got into trouble at school, or snuck out, or drank, or anything like that. In that moment, I told him straight out, he had been a terrible father to me. He responded by telling me to never talk to him again and then hung up. That's when I made the decision to block everyone, deleted their numbers, blocked them on every social media platform. No one has tried to reach out or visit me since. I'm left wondering if I overreacted, or if I should have cut them off a long time ago. I feel so incredibly hurt. I thought someone would at least see things from my side, or have my back for once, but it feels like I'm just this huge problem to all of them unwanted, as if the blame always falls on me. I do feel bad that I didn't tell my sister I'm no longer participating in her wedding, but honestly, she's never given me the courtesy or support that I've needed, either. Am I the asshole here? Update 1. Since I was a kid, my dad drilled into me the belief that he was the only one who'd ever have my back, love me the most, and always be there for me. Everything he did, he said, was for my sake. Hearing that as a child, it seeped deep into my bones. I accepted it as truth. But it was emotionally and mentally brutal. Side by side with his declarations of love, there were times when my dad was downright cruel and did awful things to me. And yet, almost as quickly, he'd break down, cry, apologize, and tell me how much he loved me. It was a dizzying cycle. I have these memories of him teaching me how to swim, ride a bike, reading me bedtime stories, the memories you're supposed to cling to, the ones that made me second guess myself later. On social media, and around friends, neighbors, even my coworkers, everyone always commented on how amazing and charismatic he appeared. He could charm anyone in an instant. So I started questioning what I remembered. Was it really that bad? Was I making it up, or blowing it out of proportion? His ability to spin things was truly remarkable. It wasn't until I got older, could hustle enough money for therapy, and invested in books about toxic patterns, that I really started to understand none of this was normal. My siblings are a good 6 to 12 years younger than me. When they were small, we were inseparable. We played games, they'd follow me everywhere, and they adored me. I taught them to read, I walked them through their first steps, I helped with all their homework, chaperoned field trips, and picked them up after school. I took them out to restaurants, to museums. I tried to give them the joyful moments I always wish someone gave me. Everything changed after the first time I was taken away. Suddenly, they grew distant. I never found out what changed, nobody talked about it. That silence became its own wound. Even among all the pain, there were bright spots, small, good moments that kept sparking hope. Every time I tried to fix things, it was the memories of those good sides I was holding onto. At the same time, I was just a young adult, struggling to figure out my own life. People aren't one-dimensional, we all have layers, both good and bad. But over these past 3 years, things grew so much worse that something in me finally broke. I knew I couldn't keep hoping, couldn't keep trying to fix something that was not going to change. I realized I needed to choose myself. Even with all those tangled memories, it was time. Update 2. 2 weeks after I blocked everyone, a number I didn't recognize sent me a screenshot of Lily's wedding website. My business name was splashed across the page as photography plus video gifted by Big Sis, and 3 of my portfolio images clients who had actually paid me were sitting on their homepage like props. My stomach dropped and then, weirdly, I left. I hadn't signed a contract, hadn't confirmed a date, hadn't even been told the venue. I had gone no contact and somehow was still working for free. I wrote one email from my business account, short, exactly what my therapist would be proud of. I told them to remove my name and my images by the end of the day. No emotion, just, I do not consent, I will not be shooting this wedding, please cease using my work. 10 minutes later my phone rang from a number with my stepmom's company header. I let it go to voicemail. Then Paris tried. Then unknown. When I finally picked up, it was Lily, clipped and cold, like she'd never spent a summer curled up next to me on the couch watching cartoons. "You can't do this," she said, like I'd taken a puppy from her arms. "We already announced you were doing it. People are excited. You can be excited about someone else," I said. "Take my name down. It's literally free," she snapped. "Family. I'm not a coupon code," I said, and hung up. They took the site down for an hour, then it came back up with my credit line moved lower, like burying it would make it disappear. I filed an actual takedown after that. The builder yanked the whole thing for a day. I guess, that was the moment it clicked that I wasn't bluffing, because my dad called from a second number he must have borrowed from a coworker. I answered because I'm still someone's kid, and some part of me wants a different ending every single time. "You embarrassed your sister," he said, "no hello. Fix it. Send an apology. Do the photos. This is not about you." "She used my work without permission," I said. "That's not about me either. That's the law." He did that scoffing thing, the exhale laugh I know better than my own. "You always find a way to make yourself a victim." "I'm not a victim," I said, voice shaking anyway. "I'm a business." A day later my videographer texted me. "She's a friend." Months ago, when I was still trying to be the sister I wanted, I told her to hold Lily's date as my gift and I paid her retainer because I've seen her say no to other couples when she's booked and I respect her. "Hey," she wrote, "Fiancé just messaged me for a timeline and asked when you're paying the rest." I stared at that for a long time. I wrote back, told her to release the hold, told her I was transferring the credit to a courthouse elopement I'd booked last minute for a couple who didn't have a dime but showed up to our consult holding hands like the world had given them everything anyway. It felt exactly like taking back my gift and then handing it to someone who actually wanted me there. I also remembered the album sitting in production leather bound, their names embossed in gold, date hot pressed on the spine, a thing I ordered the same week I said I got you without thinking it would cost me more than money. I called my lab, stopped the order, ate the rush fee, retooled the design that night for the courthouse pair with a different font and a different color thread. When I picked it up, it was heavier than I remembered and also not at all. I ran my thumb over their names and felt proud instead of sick. The next day, Paris showed up at my place with Lily's fiancé. No call, just knocks like a metronome and then him shifting his weight in the peephole, trying to make himself look big. I opened the door because avoiding people has never once made them kinder to me. Paris smiled tight and professional, like we were in a conference room. "We're here to find a solution," she said. "I already found mine," I said. He jumped in. "We can promote you on all our socials," he offered, as if he was sliding a briefcase across a table. "Exposure. We know a ton of military couples." I couldn't help it, I laughed again. "Sir, exposure doesn't pay my rent." Paris tilted her head in the pitying way she used to reserve for group projects. "Be reasonable," she said. "If you won't do the weighing, at least send the engagement raws." I'm not sending you unedited files from a surprise session I shot 2 years ago for your announcement, I said. You were gifted edited images. You used them. You don't own the rest. So you are going to hold our memories hostage? He said. I'm going to protect my work, I said, and took note, in the corner of my eye, of my neighbor across the hall cracking her door. I did not want this to become a scene. You need to leave, I said. You're not my clients. I've been clear. Harris called me selfish. He called me ungrateful. I closed the door and turned the deadbolts, not because I thought they'd do something stupid, but because the click felt like a period after a paragraph with too many commas. Later that evening, an email came from a new address with Lily's name in the subject line. It was longer than anything she's ever sent me, full of sharp corners. She told me I was punishing her for being happy, that I was jealous, that I was ruining her once-in-a-lifetime day. Somewhere in there, wedged between the accusations, she wrote, I told people my big sister was doing this because I always imagined you would. It sucker punched me for a second, the past and the present colliding like that. This picture she held of me, the one I used to try so hard to live up to. I wrote back one last time. I kept it clean. I said I wouldn't be in the wedding party, I wouldn't be photographing or paying for anything. I reminded her to remove my name and work from anything public. I told her I wished her a lovely day and a good life. I didn't add all the words I wanted to, the ones that had nothing to do with weddings and everything to do with nights spent on the floor of a storage unit counting change. I hit send and then blocked that address too. My birthday came and went quietly. I ate chocolate cake on my friend's couch and watched something stupid and perfect on TV, and her husband pretended not to cry when he carried in a stack of folding chairs he found on Facebook Marketplace for my tiny studio space because her clients need somewhere to sit besides the floor. I had taken a bus that morning to pick up a car I'd been saving for, not flashy, just reliable, and when I turned the key, and it started on the first try, I cried like I was getting married to my own life. Odd coda, the venue coordinator called me. Somebody had given her my number before I blocked them. Polite, mortified. She said she'd been under the impression I was the photographer, that Dad had confirmed. I told her no, and she apologized like she herself had hurt me. Do you want me to remove your name from the timeline? She asked, small, kind, doing what my family did. Yes, I said, and thanked her. I haven't heard from my dad since the day he told me to fix it. Not a voicemail. Not a knock. My apartment is so quiet I can't hear the hallway ice maker. That quiet used to make me feel like something terrible was about to happen, like I was bracing for the next hit. Now, it's a space where I can't hear my own thoughts. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't ache. It does. There's a lily-shaped phantom in the passenger seat when I drive home late, an empty space where a phone call to my dad should go when something funny happens. But I took back what I gave away without being asked to, my time, my work, my softness. I thought it would feel like theft. It feels like getting my name back. Update 3. A green postal slip was taped crooked to my door like a band-aid that missed the wound. Certified mail. The envelope was thick and trying too hard, from the office of Jensen & Price, LLP, in a font I've seen on church bulletins. Inside was a 3-page letter accusing me of tortious interference and breach of oral contract, with a Gmail in the footer and my business name spelled 2 different ways, once with 2 S's. It demanded I deliver all raw files within 72 hours, reinstate my credit line on the wedding site, and execute services as previously agreed. They attached a PDF with screenshots of my own photos like they were evidence in a museum heist. At the bottom was a signature that wasn't mine, lowercase I dotted with a circle like a teenager's diary entry. I said oh, come on out loud to my empty kitchen and texted a picture to my friend who keeps reminding me to act like a business even when I'm shaking. There's a legal clinic in town that meets on Tuesdays in a church basement that smells like paper and lemons. You sign up on a clipboard and sit on folding chairs under fluorescent lights that hum like bees. A woman with silver hair and lipstick the color of a stop sign called my name. Hemilla. She read the letter, raised one eyebrow, and laughed in a way that unclenched something behind my ribs. We wrote back from her account in real lawyer font. It was surgical. No adjectives. She CC'd the website builder, the venue, and whatever Jensen & Price was pretending to be. She included screenshots of their site with my credit and my portfolio images, dated. She used the words unauthorized and misrepresentation and cease immediately like she was laying down bricks. Then she asked, very softly, if anyone might have used my name or signature on vendor documents. Yes, I said before my brain caught up with my mouth. The venue coordinator called me again 2 hours later, still kind. We have a vendor confirmation sheet with your name typed, she said. There's a signature, but it looks different than the contract you sent me for a different wedding in spring. She sounded like she was trying to wrap a delicate vase in tissue paper. "Do you want to file a note with us?" I did. She removed my name from everything and flagged the account. Camilla slid another sheet of paper toward me, a form to note suspected forgery with the state's Consumer Protection Unit. It felt ridiculous to fill out a government document because someone couldn't take no for an answer, but I signed it anyway. My hand shook so badly I had to brace my elbow on the table. The same night, a Facebook message request popped up from a profile picture I recognized as my dad's older sister, hair like teased cotton candy, the one who taught me how to French braid in the back pews at Easter once. "Coffee?" she wrote. "I have something for you." I met her at a diner off the highway with vinyl booths that stuck to the back of my knees. She slid a manila envelope across to me like it was contraband. "I should have given you this years ago," she said. I didn't know how. Inside were 3 of my letters, 12 years old now, addressed to my siblings. My name on the return address in bubble handwriting. 2 were cut open cleanly along the top and taped shut again. 1 was unopened, sampling bruised, returned to sender. In a corner, someone had written "moved" in my dad's handwriting, except I could see the indentations where I must have pressed too hard when I wrote, "See through ghosts of hi, I miss you" bleeding backward through the paper. There was also a copy of a CPS closure form with dates that line up with my memory, and a typed note from the school counselor I used to sit with after last period, when my ride forgot. "He told everyone you ran off," my aunt said, hands around her mug like she was warming herself on the heat of what she was finally saying. "That you didn't want to be around because we had rules. He said you were experimenting." She couldn't look at me on the last word. I knew that wasn't right. I tried to push back. "He told me to mind my business. I kept your letters because I wanted you to approve you kept trying." The envelope was heavier than physics allowed. I carried it home pressed flat to my chest like a shield. I sat on my floor and read my own 13-year-old voice telling my sister about the rainbow I saw over the school parking lot and how I'd learned to make pancakes with bananas, asking if she still liked dinosaurs, promising I'd come to her recital. I cried the way I did in the parking lot when the used car started on the first turn of the key, equal parts grief and relief, all of it mine. My phone kept dinging. Unknown numbers asking for my certificate of insurance, a copy of my W-9, whether I was still coming to the rehearsal. "Wrong person," I wrote, "or nothing at all." Camilla's letter must have landed because the website went blank and stayed that way. Then I got an email from a blog that features weddings, one of their editors reaching out cheerfully, asking to confirm spelling before they posted Lily's gallery, courtesy of me. I spun in my office chair, squeezed my eyes shut, counted to 10, and wrote back with a link to the DMCA form. It disappeared the next day, a ghost of a page with no bones. The courthouse couple whose album I redesigned texted me a photo of their parents opening it at their kitchen table. Everybody was laughing. There were paper plates with cake forks and someone had put a vase of grocery store tulips on a pile of bills, and it was the most romantic thing I'd seen in a month. I printed a copy of the cover for my wall. The thread was silver, not gold, but it gleamed the same under the afternoon light that splashes across my desk like a blessing. The week of the wedding, Paris's fiancé called again from a new number. Voicemail. "We're scrambling," he said, like that was my weather to fix. "Can you just do family photos at the church stairs? We can settle up after." I was standing on a ladder in my tiny studio, hanging a vintage lace curtain I'd found for $10. I listened, then set the phone down and texted a friend who sometimes takes last-minute gigs when people cancel. "Are you free Saturday?" I wrote. "There's a wedding that's about to implode. If you want the job, I can connect you with a venue coordinator. You'll get paid. It's not mine." She said yes. I did that much and nothing more. It felt like moving a glass off the edge of a table with 2 fingers. Not my table. Still. Gravity exists. On the day itself, I was at a backyard vow renewal for the courthouse pair's grandparents, who'd married at City Hall in the 70s and never had photos because the clerk's camera jammed. There were folding chairs on a patchy lawn and kids weaving daisy chains in a grill that smoked like a fog machine. The sun at golden hour decided to be cinematic just for them. The grandmother wore the dress she never got to wear, tea-length with sleeves like clouds. He cried when she walked across the grass. I did my job. I moved gently. I pressed the quiet shutter and tried to stay small in the right ways. My new car sat at the curb, not fancy but my trunk full of light stands that gleamed like a promise. Halfway through, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number and then a voicemail, and then another. I didn't listen. I pointed a little girl toward where her grandfather had stepped behind the hydrangea bush to pull himself together. I adjusted a boutonniere. I stole a shot of their hands finding each other without looking. When I finally sat down on my studio floor after Knees bruised and happy, I put my phone on speaker and let the audio stack play out. Eris, crying. A stranger, we're a guest at Lily's wedding, can you send the photos when you can? Lily's fiancé, angry soft, we'll compensate you. We'll say thank you publicly. My dad's voice, last, flat, I hope this was worth it. I didn't call anyone back. I ordered a pizza and edited until midnight, color balancing the kind of love that outlasts faulty equipment and people who forget you and the lies other people tell about your name. I slept with the aunt's manila envelope on my nightstand. 2 days after, a cousin I haven't seen since she had braces texted me a screenshot of my dad's Facebook. He'd posted one of my headshots, one I took by setting a timer and leaning against my own studio wall because I couldn't afford to hire anyone yet, and wrote, "My girl, the photographer. Too busy building her empire to make the wedding. So proud." The comments were heart emojis and high 5 gifs and a woman I don't know saying, "You raised her right." I put my phone face down on the table and watched a fruit fly travel the rim of my water glass like it was mapping a new planet. I did not reply to my cousin. He likes the version of me that costs him nothing. Then a small, human thing cracked through. A hand-addressed envelope, no return, inside a note card with a watercolor of peonies on the front. "We messed up," the first line said, printed neat. It was Lily. Sure. No adjectives. She said the photographer my friend sent had done fine, that there were photos of the dance where Dad cried and that she hoped I was well. At the end, she wrote, "I shouldn't have put you on the site without asking. I thought it would make it true." I sat with that for a long time. I didn't write back. I put the card in the same drawer as my 13-year-old letters. Maybe one day I'll be able to pull them all out without shaking. Yesterday, my neighbor across the hall knocked with a plant in a chipped terracotta pot. "For the studio," she said. "It thrives on neglect. My favorite kind." She told me her name, finally, like we were moving from strangers to something else, and asked if I wanted to split her Costco membership because photographers and small business people go through too much coffee. I laughed. We made plans for Tuesday because Tuesdays seemed to be my day for small mercies. Last night, a number I didn't have saved texted me, "Stepmom. Your dad is having a procedure tomorrow. He asked me to tell you." No ass tucked into it. No guilt trip in a bow. The old reflex shot through me like a lightning strike. I stood in the middle of my kitchen and let it move through and out. I wrote back, "I hope it goes smoothly." I set my phone down. I breathed. I photographed a couple tonight in front of a rust orange Ford Bronco parked on the street by acid in a getaway car from somebody else's love story, Hank catching the streetlight just so. The bride threw her head back and laughed, and for a fraction of a second, I saw my sister at 8 with ice cream on her face, and then I brought the camera up and did the thing I'm good at, I froze joy while it was here. I ordered new business cards with my name pressed into the paper so deep you can feel it even with your eyes closed. I picked them up from the print shop and fanned them like a deck. I thought about all the times I was told to move on without being given anything to move toward. Now I have addresses. I have keys. I have letters that prove the past happened and a plant that will live even when I forget to water it. I keep waiting for it to feel like punishment and choosing this. It feels like oxygen. Update 4. The morning of his procedure I woke up before my alarm and boiled water for coffee like I was diffusing a bomb. I sent, "I hope it goes smoothly," and tucked my phone under a dish towel so I wouldn't keep checking it like a bad habit. At 10, the towel buzzed anyway. Voicemail. I let it stack, one from a number I didn't have saved, one from my aunt, one from restricted like a magician's flourish. At noon my aunt texted, "Parking garage, level 3. She doesn't do subtlety usually. Her cardigans announced themselves from a block away. When I pulled up, she was braced against the cement barrier, like she was expecting an earthquake. Stepmom was next to her in scrubs blue and a zip-up, hair twisted up with a pen. No hospital bracelet on her, she wasn't the one, on a gurney. She had a plastic gift bag looped on her wrist with tissue paper stabbing out of the top like prairie grass. "He's fine," she said, before I had my car in park. "They're keeping him overnight for observation. He told me to tell you." She swallowed. I could see where her lipstick had worn off in the middle like a bitten peach. "This isn't about him." She took the pen out of her hair and pulled a manila envelope from the gift bag. It was soft at one corner like it had been handled too much, and it had my name on it in my own handwriting, except I don't dot my I with a heart. Inside, a ring of keys on a strip of Bronco's lanyard, the cheap kind they hand out at car shows, and a folded paper like the claim ticket you get when you check your coat. I didn't know how to. "I'm sorry," she said, and her voice cracked on the last word like the shell on a hard-boiled egg. "He told me to trash them years ago. I couldn't. Don't tell him you got them from me. Just take them before he's home. The ticket was for a storage facility off the freeway, Unit C Minna 118. The address sat there on copier paper, plain and astonishing, like the answer to a riddle you've heard your whole life. I drove there with the envelope on my passenger seat like a passenger. The office smelled like rubber bands and peppermint. A guy in a vest clicked my name into a computer and slid a clipboard at me like we were doing something fierce and official, and then I was following him past corrugated doors that breathed out cool air, one after another. C Minna 118's lock gave with a little tantrum. When I rolled the door up, the sound was a zipper on a winter coat. Cardboard. Best. Shoe bankers boxes with my name in bubble font and a star next to it like I used to draw on my folders. One boot, but a ox. A crate with a sticker that said Halloween. On top, a framed photo of a yellow lab I don't recognize that has nothing to do with me. Under it, a stack of spiral notebooks, the cheap kind with a metal ring that snags on sweaters. The first page of the first one was a list of things you should bring for a sleepover written in my slanted 6th grade hand: pajamas, toothbrush, scary movie not too scary, candy gum is not chocolate, charger, and then, scratched out, permission slip for dad. At the bottom of one box, wrapped in 2 old t-shirts, were 7 disposable cameras with the plastic gears you thumb forward, the kind they sell at gas stations next to jerky. 3 shot, 4 not. I held them like I was holding animals that could startle. At the very bottom, a minute tape in a hard little clear case, labeled Thanksgiving 2008 in the tidy black handwriting I recognize as his. On my way back, I dropped the cameras at the lab I use that shares a wall with a shop that sells incense you can't smell from the curb. The tech grinned at me over the counter and told me the same thing he tells everyone: give me 3 hours to make the past happen again. In the 3 hours I had, I went to the church basement where Camilla's clinic meets and the fluorescent lights stacked my headache like pancakes. She already knew why I was there, she always does, somehow. She waved me over with a pencil she wasn't using. The state called, she said, scrolling on her laptop with the same focus she has when she says the word herein. Our complaint was accepted. Jensen & Price doesn't exist. Gmail created last month. The IP traces to a coworking space downtown. We'll get a letter of admonition issued by Friday. It won't put anyone in cuffs. It will put a paper trail between you and their nonsense. Her mouth quirked at one corner. Also, the venue put you on their preferred list this morning. That coordinator has a spine. When I left, the lab called my name the way baristas do when your coffee's ready. They handed me a white envelope and a roll of glossy prints warm from the machine, and I sat down on the curb and went through them, smell of developer and incense loud in my nose. A birthday cake I don't remember, a paper crown on my head like a cartoon queen, my dad's hand in the corner of the frame holding a knife to show me where to cut. The neighborhood pool, summer, my arm in a floaty, his toes just at the bottom of the frame like proof he was there. A double exposure of our stairwell and the cat, its eye glinting in the banister. 3 shots of Lily at 8 with a gap-toothed smile and a dinosaur shirt that said "Rar means I love you." In one, you could see the corner of an orange car through the window, just a sliver of fender, and that made my stomach seatbelt. The minute tape took longer. I had to text 3 people before finding someone who still had a camcorder compatible with the tiny cassettes. A DJ I've worked with once said yes. He brought it over in a gym bag with a tangle of cords like seaweed. We plugged it in. The whine when it came alive was the exact pitch of my 6th grade science teacher's hearing test. Thanksgiving 2008, a wobbly view of a turkey, then a pan to a folding table with mismatched chairs. Someone had set leaves from the yard down the middle like a centerpiece. Off camera, his voice, "Say hello. Family." He sounded jovial in the way a salesman does right before he takes your credit card. My own voice piped in, small, reciting what I was thankful for like I was reading from a teleprompter: books. Mashed potatoes. That I learned how to parallel park. He laughed. It wasn't mean on tape. I rewound and played the laugh 3 times just to make sure. I hit pause on a frame where Lily was asleep on my shoulder and took a picture of the TV screen with my phone. The pixels looked like snow. I felt, briefly, like a thief in an empty museum stealing back something with my name on it. The legal letter landed 2 days later. Camilla attached it with a subject line that made me smile in spite of myself. It reads simply, "Knock it off." The state seal at the top, the language clean as a bleached bone. It said cease attempting to represent yourself as legal counsel, and cease use of signatures without consent, and future incidents may be referred for prosecution. 10 minutes after that, an email slid into my inbox from the Jensen Gmail. One line: "We thought making it look official would make you listen." I put the email in a folder named Proof, because apparently that's my kink now, labels, timestamps, things I can point to instead of yelling into a cave. The voicemail from the hospital came at 2 a.m. The hour where even the street outside is a hell breath. His voice was slurred and young in a way it only ever is when he's coming out of anesthesia, or lying. "Bug," he said, and I felt my tongue go numb at the old nickname. "They told me to count backward and I thought of you climbing the pool ladder at Holcomb because you always took forever and it's so stupid you were a pain in the ass, you know that? But you always came back." A nurse told him to keep the oxygen mask on. He whispered anyway, conspiratorial. They asked who to call and He stopped. There was the sound of a plastic cup crinkling. "Never mind," he said, and then, surprising himself, "I'm proud of you. Even when I'm mad." A beep. The line cut with a mechanical click that felt like a period at the end of a story I didn't write. I didn't call him back. I hung the lab prints on a clothesline in my studio with silver binder clips because framing is expensive and because the way the paper sways when the AC kicks on feels like they are breathing. On the far wall, I taped up the photocopy of the CPS closure form my aunt gave me, the return to sender envelope under it like a subtitle. I wrote return to sender in my smallest, neatest hand on a scrap of white gaffer tape and stuck it to the wall like a name tag. I sent 4 texts, the aunt, the DJ with a gym bag, the neighbor with a plant, Camilla. Thursday. Open studio. 6/8. There will be cake. People came. They always surprise me that way. My neighbor brought the plant like a chaperone and her Costco card like a passport, and she hugged me the way plants wrap around trellises gently, on purpose. The aunt stood in front of the photo of Kid Lily for a long time and didn't touch her eyes with her fingers because of mascara. The DJ patted the camcorder like a dog that did a trick. Camilla ate cake and then lined up the plates at the edge of the table because even her crumbs like order. About a half hour in, Lily walked in. No entourage. Hair in a messy bun, hoodie with the Marine emblem cracked on the shoulder like an old road. She held a shoe box sideways like a pizza. We blinked at each other like deer who accidentally ended up in the same yard. "These were in Dad's desk," she said. She didn't step past the rug. She put the box down on the little table by the door where I put business cards and a dish of mints. "Negatives. I think. And this." She slid a flat rectangle wrapped in packing paper out from under them like a magician's move. I didn't touch any of it yet. It felt like a trap and a gift and a trick of the light. She looked past me at the wall, found the return to sender that had my 13-year-old looping G's. "I was 8, she said quietly, which wasn't an apology and wasn't an accusation either. It just was. "Yeah," I said. Her eyes landed on the gaffer tape title and her mouth twitched. "On brand," she said. Then she exhaled through her nose, a tiny laugh that sounded tired and real. "I'm not." She gestured at my life with her hand. "I'm not here to fight." "Okay," I said, and meant it. She picked up a business card, ran her thumb over where my name sits pressed deep into the paper like a fossil. "Nice," she said, and then, "I shouldn't have put your name on the site." Her jaw worked like she was chewing something without taste. "I thought it would make it true." "I know," I said. "I read the card." "Right," she said, and then, at the door, pausing with one sneaker on the hallway tile, "He cries at dance photos now." She said it like she was offering me a coin that might be counterfeit. "Anyway, I thought you should have your things. Before he throws them." She left. The bell on the door did a polite little chime like a winged-up bird. I waited until my studio was quiet again. Then, I had opened the shoe box. Negatives in glass-signed sleeves, one after another, orange like bottled sunset. A folded Polaroid peeking out of a manila envelope, the white frame creased. On the Polaroid, my mother, younger than I am now, hair curling the way she makes it, holding me like a rumor. On the back, my name, written in a version of my handwriting I didn't know I inherited. No note. No explanation. Just the proof of 2 people in a square. I pressed my thumbnail into the dotted line of a sleeve and slid out a strip, held it up to the light from my south window. Tiny inverted worlds flickered there, Christmas tree, blue couch, a hand tying a sneaker that sure as hell looks like mine. I laughed in a surprised way that hurt. The past is petty and generous, both. The packet wrapped in paper was the Bronco room sign itself, the stupid wooden thing with a block lettered Ford and a painted orange car that hung crooked behind a locked door while I slept on my sister's linens like a guest. The back had pencil marks where someone measured and never leveled. I leaned it against the baseboard and stepped over it like a snake sunning. On Friday, the venue coordinator called me to say thank you for connecting them with my friend. "She saved us," she said, voice bright the way people get when they've just stopped a pot from boiling over. "We added you both to our list." I put the phone on my shoulder and slid a short velvet love seat across my floor with my foot, the rubber grippers wailing like geese. I pictured my client sitting there instead of on the floor and felt the small satisfaction you get when you change a light bulb by yourself. Saturday afternoon, a letter from the state landed in my mailbox with my name spelled right on the window. Inside, dry as toast, a paragraph stating that a warning had been issued, that my report had been recorded, that unauthorized use of my signature would be considered identity theft if repeated. I put it in the proof folder, top left. On Sunday, he called from his own number. I let it ring out. The voicemail was shorter this time. They said I talked in my sleep, he said. I could hear a game on low in the background, the commentary a steady drone. You don't have to whatever. I saw your thing on the orange app. You looked good. Professional. The way he said professional like it was a flavor. Your aunt keeps. Anyway. A breath. You always took forever on the pool ladder. That part is true. I listened to it twice. Then I hit save. Not because it was what I wanted. Because it existed. Tonight, I set the timer on my own camera and stood in front of the rust orange Bronco parked 2 doors down, the one that's been there all week with a for sale sign curling in the windshield. I stood there in the dusk light, chin up, my business cards in my pocket like talismans. I looked straight into the lens and didn't make my mouth do anything it didn't want to do. Behind me, my neighbor waved from her door with a bag of Costco croissants like a joke prop, and I waved back without breaking eye contact with the class. When I got home, I made tea I didn't need. The plant on my windowsill lifted its leaves to the cheap apartment sun like it was a church. In my drawer, a note with peonies, a stack of letters with bruised stamps, a Polaroid with 2 people who existed even if nobody talked about them. On my wall, proof that I loved a family that didn't know how to love me back in a way that didn't require me to disappear to make room.